Hello guys, today we are going to start our chapter number 7 in history, craft and industries. Okay, in this chapter we shall see how two of the major industries of India, namely the textile and smelting industries, were affected by the colonial rule. It is important to note that they both were crucial for the industrial revolution in England, which was taking place in the same period. Okay. So guys, the East India Company came into the Indian territory with the sole aim of trade, but gradually is turned into a governing body, and slowly but steadily most of Indian territories came under British control for administration and governance. The British realized that India was a huge landmass rich in sources and had a large population which was comparatively poor, largely illiterate, and thus easier to be subjugated, under their control. The period of industrial revolution, with the invention of the steam engine and many such inventions, had started in the advancement. Here, industries was still primitive in nature, small scale, and mostly involved labor intensive techniques of production. In contrast, the industry in Great Britain was getting more mechanized, had the capacity of produce in large volumes, but was running short of material as inputs and did not have much scope for the sale of the finished good. Both these things were available in plenty in India, and this was the basic reasons why the British chose to take the raw material from India. They converted it into finished good, and then sold it in India and other parts of the world at high profit. Okay guys, the textile industries, Indian textile industry was quite developed in the 17th century. The qualities was fine, the design and texture is strangely different from the best, and the dyeing was high qualities. The Muslim of Dhaka in the Bengal was famous for its superior finish, and it was famous for being one of the softest and finest fabric of the time. It was claimed that a full length of cloth could be packed in a matchbox, and a weight of over 1 yard could be squeezed through a ring. Similarly, the cotton and silk fabric from India was very famous and had a huge demand in the Arab and Southeast Asian countries. Had been trading with India. Later, other parts of the world also traded them. Once the traders from the west came to Indian shores, but all the Indian fabric was made on handlooms, which was labor intensive and of time consuming process. Therefore, the production was less as the demand grew due to trade in foreign countries. It became expensive as well as. Yet due to the quality and designs, there was considerable demand of the fine since silk, textile, Muslim zamdani and calico in the world market. The good quality fabric reaching Britain caused worry and concern in the local manufacturers, and they raised as alarm and protested against the import. The British government realized that the import and sale of Indian textile product in Great Britain was against their national interest of promoting their own industry. So they took certain steps to safeguard their industry. Yeah guys, Calico Act of 1720. When the Portuguese first came to India in search of spices, they landed in Calicut on the Kerala coast in southwest India. The cotton textile which they took back to Europe along with the spices came to be called calico, derived from calicut. Okay, and subsequently calico became the general name for all cotton textile. The calico question was one of the major issues of British national politics between the 1690s and the 1720s. There Parliament began to see a decline in domestic textile sales and an increase in imported textile from places like China and India. Seeing the East India Company and their textile import as their threat to domestic textile businesses, the British Parliament passed the Calico Act as a restrictive legislation on the import of the textile. The advent of the Industrial Revolution saw the invention of the spinning jenny in 1764, and this was followed by the invention of the steam engine. Both these jointly revolutionized the textile industry there. It was now on a position to produce large quantities of cloth at a much faster pace and cheaper rates despite these technological improvement. Okay, Indian clothes continue to be popular till the end of 18th century. Yes guys, the decline of Indian textile, the development of cotton industry in Britain affected textile producers in India in several ways. Indian textile now had to compete with the British textiles in the European and American market. Okay, exporting textiles to England became increasingly different as very high duties were imposed on Indian textile imported into Britain. In the beginning of 19th centuries, English made cotton textile were preferred to Indian goods. Okay, and now last Indian textile lost their market in Africa, America and Europe. In other words, we can say that the Indian textile industry saw a decline from the end of the 18th century onward due to the following reasons. The British textile industry was getting more and more mechanized, and they took away the raw material from India. Both the Corsian and varied other business practices. Okay, and the Indian finished cloth reaching Western countries was being subject to high tariff, making it non-competitive, which led to a drastic fall in the demand. Okay, the British brought finished machines made cloth to India and sold it much cheaper rates than the indigenous product made on handlooms. Okay, the fall of sales of Indian cloths lead to a large scale unemployment, closure of many mills as well as property and indebtedness of the workers in these industries. Okay, so the suffering of the people who were involved in the textile industry increased by the day. The Bengal weavers where the worst affected. English and European companies stopped buying Indian goods and their agents no longer gave out advance to weavers to secure supplies, and it was not just the mill owners and the people directly involved in the mills, but there were other people also who were involved in the making of the fabric. There were the dyers who dyed the cloth, the printers, the designers and the laborers who transported the goods and the trades. All of these people were affected by the decline of the industries. So guys, smelting industries, you have studied in the geography section about the minerals rich in India, especially with the quantum of irons, coppers and aluminiums available in the various parts of the subcontinent. Accordingly, the Indian industrial scenario of 17th and 18th century was also quite developed, but the industry was not on a large scale. Small units work in isolation with limited know-how and cater to the local needs of metal and metallic items. This was probably so because India was divided into many small kingdoms and therefore there was no scope for a market for bigger industries. So technological know-how was not as advanced as the Western world. The local smelters used to collect small quantities of ore, melt it in furnace working with wood as fuel. Yet there was knowledge about some alloys which helped them to make utensils, weapons and other items of regular usage. The British initially traded for some finished goods of metallic nature, but they were more interested in the ores itself so that they could meet the requirement of the industry in their homeland. Okay, they thus looked they thus took the following actions to ensure their own industries sustained and flourished. So guys, with the beginning of industrial revolution in the mid 18th century, the requirement of metal increased in their country. This made them not only take away the ores but also timber which was to be used in furnaces for smelting the metals. They made rules and regulations facilitated their selfish interest and capture large forest areas so that they could take away from of the wood. Okay, they declared many forests as reserved and protected forests, thereby prohibiting the entry of the local inhabitants and the into those areas. This allowed them to gain total control over huge quantity of timber in India. They brought many finished goods from England to be sold in India, and thus there was serve competition to the indigenous metallic goods. All the above actions caused major suffering to the smelting and India, who at many places had to change their occupation as they had no wood to operate their furnaces or ores for melting. The demand for their goods also dwindled and they suffered losses. Okay. Yes, other industries. India had some other small industries and handicraft which included the goldsmith, the artisan working on metals, ivory, stone and wood. Most of their goods were being purchased by the rich and affluent people in India, mostly king, nawabs and so on. With the arrival of the colonial powers, these classes also suffered and did not remain as financially sound as before. Okay, so the foreign powers that came here were not much interested in these goods and artifacts, and this led to the decline in demand for these goods as well. Okay, understandably, even these small industries and artisans suffered and at many places had to shut shop. Okay. Yes, resurgence of the Indian industry. The industries, after having seen a serious decline in the 18th century, saw some revival in the latter half of 19th century. Gradually, some industries imported the technology and machines from foreign countries and started stabilizing cotton mills in India. The first cotton mills was established in Bombay in 1854 by the Kavarji Nana Bhai. Okay, the industries grew as more mills came up and around Bombay, and by 1900 nearly 18 mills had come up in regions. This area was preferred compared to Surat, the earlier hub of cotton industry, as it is remained close to the areas of black soil which favored cotton cultivation. It also gave avenue for more cells near the port of Bombay. Large number of peoples migrated toward this city in search of work, and Bombay developed into a bigger city. Trade, commerce, and Britain and China, but it did not get much favor of support, and it could not be turned into a very profitable industry. Okay, the steel industry also showed sign of revival, while the small time melters nearly perished. Darabji Tata, the son of Jamsetji Tata, started looking for a suitable site for setting up iron and steel plants. Okay, during their search for a suitable site in the year 1904, he, along with a geologist by the name of Charles Weld, an American, came across some villagers carrying iron ore in small baskets. These villagers were from the Agria community. With the help of this community, they had found huge deposits of iron ore in that area. They, however, did not accept it as a suitable site due to lack of adequate water, which is essential for a steel plant. Darobji therefore decided to establish an iron and steel plant at a nearby place of Jamshedpur on the bank of river Karkoi and Subarnakha. The steel plant came to be famously known as the Tata Iron and Steel Company or TISCO. The company started production in 1912. In the company gradually started getting some demands for the produce, especially for the railways, which was being established in those time. Okay. Yes, the Great Wars and their impact. The First World War in 1914 and then the Second World War in 1939 gave rise to the need for maintaining huge armies by the British. This brought in the need for both cloth for uniforms and metal for arms and ammunition. Okay, the armies were stationed in India, and therefore it was preferable for the British to supply these items from India based industries, as the ships and other resources of their homeland could not be spread for export from there. Such demands lead to the sustenance of these industries till the emergence of the independent India, which formulated its own industrial policies and charted its growth all through foreign aid and loans were taken from friendly countries, but many government and private industry developed over the years to make India into a non-industrial hub across the world. Okay students, this chapter is over. I hope you understand what is in this chapter.